Hello YouTube, Skip the Wolf here, back with another video for your viewing pleasure. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the new I Prevail album that just came out, Violent Nature. Um, just listened to it, and this is my first initial reaction to it. Now, if you know my past history, you know that, I've not been a big fan of I Prevail. I thought True Power was an absolutely terrible album. I remember when Trauma came out, I was, thinking that was going to be something, because after Lifelines, I thought this was a band that had potential, And then they really disappointed me there. And then I heard True Power, and then I was like, oh, this is garbage, basically, because they basically recycled a lot of the things that I had a problem with from their from Trauma, and then put them on True Power, and then made it worse, and made it more edgy, and made it basically a lot of things that are wrong with modern metalcore. They just kind of put it on that record, and then that's why it was one of the worst albums of that year that it came out. So part of me was like, I don't have a lot of hope for this new album, Violent Nature, but another part of me was like, it's been 3 years. They've gone through some changes and stuff, some band changes, particularly there's a new lead singer that's involved in the band now. Never would have known that. The other guy didn't really have that much personality in his vocals, I think. And maybe that was something that was kind of different or something like that, um for the band. Who knows? I keep giving bands chances, because even if they don't necessarily they don't do anything for me the first couple of times, maybe the third time or the fourth, or whatever time, they will finally do something for me, and they'll all of a sudden I'll see what's the big deal about them and all that kind of stuff. And that's basically my attitude going to Violent Nature. Like for the first of all, not thinking it was going to be particularly good, top 25 or anything like that, but also like not thinking, not going in completely dreading it, because I did hear some promise in the singles. Violent Nature, the title track, wasn't huge on necessarily, but Into Hell, I will say that Into Hell was not that bad of a song. It wasn't. I thought it was pretty. I didn't really have any problems with that song necessarily. It's not mind blowing or anything, but Into Hell is fine. I think for as a radio single, as something that you would put out for there, it's fine. There's nothing that big of a problem. There's not that big of a problem with it. And it's probably one of the best songs that I Prevail's ever done. And I was thinking this would be a little more mature, I guess, because it definitely did kind of sound more mature than a lot of other stuff that I'd heard from them. So, um, yeah, and I will say that there are some moments on this album. I think there is a little bit more lyrical, I guess, maturity, I guess, or sound wise maturity. You could tell that in some areas of this album, like, as you can see, I'm trying to be a bit more fair on this album and be more like be more objective, whatever the term, or subjective. I'm trying to be more fair with this album. Is basically what I'm trying to say for this. Um, yeah, you could tell some moments there is some effort put in to make it more personal or whatever it is. Whether it be Into Hell, and then the track that comes right after it, Crimson and Clover. I thought that track actually, Crimson and Clover, was very good of a song. So already we got two pretty good songs on this album. Because Crimson Clover, what they did was basically they made it like an acoustic track, and I think the singing is good, and I think for like I Prevail's career, it's pretty much interesting that they actually made some really interesting lyrics to go along with it. Actually, if you want some foreshadowing for what this review is going to go for in the future, better lyrics than the rest of the album. But that's gonna come later. Like, I mean, I'll talk about like the cons of this album later. But for now, Into Hell and Crimson and Clover definitely a solid like 1-2 punch, I guess you could say. Crimson and Clover being more acoustic driven, ballad esque, and it works. And also kind of like Annihilate Me, even though again like Into Hell, it's just kind of just standardized, I guess, but it's inoffensive enough, I guess. There's a lot of stuff that's inoffensive. I guess the title track to the not the opening track to this album is a little bit inoffensive, but it is kind of just unfocused, and I do kind of feel that unfocus a little bit with this album. Like it doesn't necessarily know what it wants to be. First of all, it doesn't know whether it wants to be like this heavy or like this because I Prevail has a lot of constraints that they have to like follow in order to be like whatever. Like it doesn't know whether it wants to be heavy or like they have the heavier side for sure, and it's something I don't think they do very well. That's something that I will say. Um, and let's just get with that for example, other than Violent Nature, which I wasn't huge on, but like I can see other people liking it. There's moments on here that like I'm just this is just edge. This is just edgy McEdgerson going on here. Like with like God, I mean, this is literally just the song God. I'm just talking about that. That song's basically just edge, Lord kind of like lyrics mixed with like they don't really commit to this heaviness, and that's the big problem with this track in particular, and a couple other tracks on here, like NWO, which again they're doing the abbreviations again. That's back from the other album, so they are kind of recycling stuff. But with God, I mean, like it's just edge, and I mean, like he's a very weak scream vocalist for like as you can see, he tries to do like a pig squeal or something like that. But at the end of the song, it just sounds forced. It just sounds like, "Hey, look what I can do with my voice. Look how heavy I can be. Look how insincere I guess I could be with this like performance or whatever." Like, and there's some very shrill vocal moments on here, like with the scream vocals for whether it be this track and the high and like the high screams and stuff like that. Whether it be that or Pray, which does incorporate like a couple of high screams as well, like, and it's just not high pitched screams or anything, but it's just like the vocal performance kind of like leans that way, and it doesn't really work for me. And also, Prey has wonderful lyrical topic in the first verse about the standard grave depth in pop culture, 1.8 meters, 6 feet. And that lyrical cliche shows up on the first verse of this song, which, again, they used it again on here. They used it on True Power. They used it on Trauma, and they don't know how to make any album without having one song with that cliche. It's almost like they go into like a room. They have like a dartboard with cliches in front of them, just like, and it always just ends up on the 6 feet cliche. Like every time, it's just the dartboard basically consists of just 6 feet deep, 6 feet under, and then any variation of like different like variations of that, and it just always just magically lands on that. That's basically the gist of the song "Pray." Not a very good song, and also like "Don't Pray for Me," "Don't Pray for" that kind of like lyrical topic worn out, basically like that's what like that's the thing. That's what I mean by this band does like you can see the lyrical like stuff really falling apart with like a majority of this album. I mean the lyrics are not very impressive, kind of like the album that we talked about the last week, the Demon Hunter album. Like, but this is different. I mean, this is a little bit different in the fact that this is just falling in line with the metalcore status quo in lyrics, I guess, like because they're always talking about stuff, they're always like having the same kind of like lyrical cliches and stuff. Like, and I think I Prevail does kind of fall right into that. They're not. Yeah, I could definitely give them credit for like trying to mature like with a couple of spots. I mean, I do definitely see it. I will give pros to this band whenever I can, but the fact is they have not matured like enough to really consider it to be an all around like better experience. I mean, like when you have like way better bands in the genre, like Spirit Box, for example, Bad Omens, for example, when you have bands like that are really pushing their lyrical like content, I guess, that are really like trying to appeal with the sound, and when you have other heavy bands like Orthodox, Varials, and like other bands that are like trying to push metalcore in a good Knocked Loose as well, like when you're trying to like have these bands that are like trying to push the genre into an interesting direction, whether that be like upping like the atmosphere, upping the heaviness, upping the lyrical content, like trying to be creative. And then you have I Prevail, which basically is just giving you like fast food core, basically what this is. Um, it's just just I Prevail to just kind of just blend right in with everything. You're kind of like not doing very much other than maybe getting a high charting single on Billboard or whatever, like trying to be as relatable as possible, but like not connecting lyrically and just kind of rinsing, washing, rinsing, repeating all the time. They're reusing and recycling their stuff instead of like, like trying to make new stuff and trying to make stuff from scratch. That's the problem I think I Prevail really has, like as a band. That is probably why I haven't really got into them that much, and that could be said for a lot of metalcore bands, but I Prevail especially because they just don't really know how to make a full album that's like as convincing enough or as solid enough as um, it really should be. Like this is a band I will continue to keep giving I Prevail a lot of chances and stuff. Like I want to see this band. I want to see where this band goes because like apparently like you know they're not really there yet. For the moments that are there, like with like Into Hell and Crimson and Clover, I think those tracks would really indicate that they would probably actually do something a little bit more interesting sound wise. And no, Stay Away is another example of trying to do something that doesn't really work for the closing track on this album is another example because that doesn't really work as well as it should. It's trying to do the whole like gaze shoegaze kind of thing and then it just kind of breaks down. It doesn't really have an identity, and it's so scatterbrained. I think this album is part scatterbrain, part status quo, and yeah, it just didn't really work for me this time. This album, I already said some nice things about it, and I will stick to that. I think there are good songs on this album that I think a lot of metalcore fans will enjoy, and I think a lot of metalcore fans who aren't necessarily that picky when it comes to like their music, when it comes to like what they want. If they want to hear just like the breakdowns or like kind of like these kind of vocal like this kind of vocal style in the cleans and the singing for sure, then they'll probably find something with this album. And another positive I will say, at least it's short for one, because like True Power, the thing that I noticed it was like longer, it was like around the 45-minute mark. This is at least short. This is something you can just like rinse and just like dispose of very quickly, just move on. That's another positive about this, but I guess I gotta get to the score actually. I was kind of like debating on whether to give this a 5 or a 6, but I think I'm confident in giving this a 5 because basically it's just kind of objectiveness for sure, like a little bit of objectiveness, and I just but I gotta be a bit more harsh because you know there is potential here. They don't really follow that for sure. If I had given this a 6, I would have like been a bit too generous in my opinion. So like giving it a 5, it's definitely a harder like it's would go a little bit hard, but it's kind of like, just for the 5 that I'm giving this album, it's just kind of like a tough kind of thing, just like you could do better. Seriously, you could do better than Violent Nature in metalcore and like a lot of different stuff. Like I feel like I Prevail will eventually have that album that will win me over, but that album just isn't really there yet. This is not as good as Lifelines, if Lifelines are even that good. That's probably their only really competent album in my opinion, and it just really isn't that much. It is their best album since Lifelines, but it is saying that is just saying like the latest album from a bad band is like that only had not very good albums is good or whatever the heck is only as good as like a very mediocre album. That's basically my review for this album. Not the most positive, but it is a review. So let me know what you think about this album, Violent Nature by I Prevail, in the comment section down below, of course, and feel free to tell me like what you thought of this review for sure. Definitely open to seeing what this band does in the future because I think they can, like I said before, they can have that album. They should have an album that's pretty good, but they just don't at this current stage of the game. So tell me what you think down in the comment section down below. This is Campbell the Wolf. This is Campbell Wolf signing out. Take care.